So raise your right hand for me. You solemnly swear any testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. All right, go ahead. See.
Permission to treat the witness as hostile. Officer, thank you for being here today. Can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Officer Chance Steele.
And you are employed with the McKinney Police Department, correct?
That is correct.
And back on November 16, 2019, you had an opportunity to arrest Mr. Duane Thompson, or at least you're involved in an investigation concerning Mr. Thompson. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Officer, I'm going to play for you what is your body cam video from that day. It's previously been admitted as State's Exhibit 2. And what we're going to see here in a second is you are searching the passenger side of this car. Is that correct?
Inventory, correct.
All right. But you're on the passenger side searching the passenger side of the car, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. So I'm going to stop here at about 33 seconds in. Now at this point, when did you first get on the scene?
I do not recall. I do recall being there during the giving commands to the vehicle, making sure no one else was inside the vehicle.
All right. And at that point, no one knew whether or not there was a passenger in that car. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also to this point, no one had any indication or had any knowledge that a gun was inside the car. Is that also fair to say?
Fair to say.
And here in a second, you're going to see a holster. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
He's got an empty holster.
And you see that in the passenger floorboard where you're shining your light?
Yes, sir.
And it was empty, correct?
Correct.
There was not a gun in the holster?
No.
And there was no ammo in the holster?
No. Not that I recall.
Empty holster.
Do you know what this black item is here on the passenger seat?
I do not recall.
Is it also fair to say that during the search, you, now Detective Alley, and Officer Blair were trying to find a key to the vehicle?
I would not know that. I was just helping with the inventory. I didn't know what they were looking for at that point.
All right. But by this point, Mr. Thompson is already detained, correct?
Correct.
And he didn't have a key on him that you're aware of, correct?
Correct.
Hey, you want to hit the unlocks? Man, I don't know where it's at. Do you know?
I have no idea.
There's like buttons on the side over here.
Usually BMW's
Yeah,
have
there
a
is.
center console.
So it's like,
Who was it you got?
The guy?
Yeah.
Officer, were you around, or do you have knowledge of Mr. Thompson asking if he could get his glasses after he was detained?
I do not.
All right. If I told you that he was asking Officer Blair and the other officers to detain him, could he please get his glasses? Would you have any reason to disbelieve that?
Judge, the hearsay, Judge.
Depending on the investigation, obviously the safety and perseverance of the evidence inside the vehicle during an inventory search.
I'm rejecting non-responsive at this point, Judge. Officer, all I'm asking is, do you have any reason to disbelieve me when I ask? Are you aware, or do you have any reason to disbelieve that Mr. Thompson was asking for his glasses after he was detained?
No, sir.
Okay.
Something. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see him. Key. You have a key? Or need to throw it up the window? Yeah, he did something then. He was in here digging around. So you got to look at that. One second.
Yeah, I got a wallet. Did he refuse?
Yeah.
All right, officer, I see that your jacket's kind of covering up your body cam here, but I believe it's you that says got a wallet here. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Where'd you find that wallet?
I do not recall.
But you were never you were never searching the driver's side of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
And from what we can tell, you never go into the back of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
You're basically just searching the passenger seat this entire time. Would that be fair to say?
That's fair.
So does it stand to reason that you found that wallet in the passenger seat?
Passenger seat or someone on the passenger side.
Okay. And do you recall if it was underneath that black thing we saw in the passenger seat?
I do not recall.
But would you agree with me that up to this point, we don't see a wallet in plain view, to use y'all's terminology?
Yes, sir.
All right. So it could very well be that his wallet was buried underneath that black item, what I believe is a jacket, but we don't know at this point, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then I'm going to skip ahead here when you do end up finding the firearm.
He wouldn't put his hands out. He was doing stuff over here. I'm guessing he was getting rid of that gun. I'm guessing that gun's in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep, it's right here.
All right, and so this is where you find the gun, and it's at the back side of the passenger seat. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And it's on the floorboard, kind of sandwiched right here between what looks to be the passenger seat and kind of the door sill where the passenger door would close. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And would you also agree with me that if you were sitting in the driver's side of this car and you were to look to your right toward the passenger side, you would not know whether or not there was a gun there?
That is correct.
Pass the witness, Judge.
No questions, Judge.
All right, is the officer excused?
By the defense.
By the state.
Show you free to leave.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I have one final witness, Judge. I call Lee Merritt. And they may approach and give the dispatch.
Tell me, swear any testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. All right, you have a seat.
Mr. Merritt, go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Stacy Sylvester Lee Merritt.
And how are you currently employed, sir?
I'm an attorney
And how long have you been an attorney for?
since 2012.
And what's your main practice area?
Constitutional law,
And where's your principal office at?
Dallas.
Where do you, or let me go back to November 16, 2019. Where were you residing at that point?
McKinney.
So your home at?
The address.
No, I don't think it's the specific address, but you were residing in McKinney at that time.
That's correct.
All right. And just tell the judge what was happening November 15th, which I believe was a Friday going into November 16th, early Saturday morning.
So Friday was an office day for me, so I started the day in my office in my personal car, which is a BMW 760 Li.
And let me stop you there. So just so the record's clear, the car at issue here, the BMW, which I believe is silver, is that your car?
That's correct.
Continue. What happened after that?
It's, for what it's worth, it's my personal car. I have a family car as well. But I drove that to the office that day and went to the gun range afterwards. It was a weekend. It was a holiday weekend for me. November 17th is the Founders Day for my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So we had Founders Day events all weekend.
And was that here in Dallas?
It's all over the country. But the event that I attended was in Dallas.
When did you leave your office to go to the gun range?
I'm not sure the exact time, sometime after I was done with my clients that day.
The gun recovered here, that's in evidence. I know it's a Glock 9mm. Are you aware what the gun recovered was? Do you know what type of gun was recovered?
No, I assumed that it was my weapon that's no longer.
If I told you it was a Glock handgun, serial number BGMA529, Do you own a Glock handgun?
9mm Glock 17, yes.
Okay. And so, what happened after you went to the gun range?
After I went to the gun range, I met with several members of my fraternity who met me at the gun range. They got in the car with me. We went to a bar afterwards.
Was Duane at the gun range with you?
No,
Did you have any idea you'd been to the gun range?
no.
Who ended up driving your BMW away from the gun range?
One of my fraternity members, his name is Brandon Watts.
Any particular reason why he was driving the car rather than yourself?
They know Dallas a lot better than I do. My fraternity members know Dallas a lot better than I do. I spent time outside of the state.
Okay. What did you do with the gun after you were done with the range?
Well, I was wearing it on a holster that I had just purchased. And so as we go into the bar, it's not a good idea to bring a gun into a bar, so I took out the gun and put it in the car.
And what bar did you go to in Dallas?
Not sure.
All right. What part of Dallas? Do you remember?
I'm sorry. Eventually, we ended the night at Park Ave because we had a greater event at Park Ave, which is the name of the bar. And I missed your second question.
Just to be clear, you don't have any felony convictions on your record, correct?
That's correct.
You don't have any domestic violence convictions on your record, correct?
That's correct.
So is it your testimony here today that the Glock was a legal handgun for you to own?
That's correct.
And when you get to the bar, describe how you disarm yourself. Because you said you'd taken the gun off. Just describe that process.
I don't have a specific recollection of actually doing it. I remember choosing not to go into a bar with a gun.
Do you remember removing the gun from the holster?
I don't recall. I wear a shoulder strap, and so and because I was wearing a suit, I would have likely had to take it out of the holster and put the gun in the car.
Okay. When you had to park your car, was it in a parking garage? Was it in a parking lot? Where was the car at the bar? If you remember.
I don't recall.
Okay. Were you ever concerned about possible theft by leaving the gun out in what's called plain view?
That would be a concern. I know that most guns that end up on the streets are stolen out of vehicles that are unsecured. I generally try to keep my gun in a lockbox, which I keep in my family car to keep it away from my kids.
Any particular reason why you didn't have a range bag or that lockbox, and why you didn't put the gun away in that prior to going out?
It's the vehicle that I chose to use. I keep it in a lockbox I have small children, although they've learned gun safety tips and they've gone to the gun range with me. All my safety equipment is my family vehicle.
So how does Duane get involved?
At some point in the night, I needed my bigger vehicle for my fraternity brothers to ride with me, as opposed to my coupe. I also left tickets to the event that we were going to that night at home, so I asked my brother to bring me my SUV and to bring tickets for the evening.
So he would have driven from McKinney to pick your stuff up and then brought it to Dallas?
That's correct.
And then how did the trade-off go as far as the cars are concerned? Or better yet, what did Mr. Thompson do when he met up with you?
My brother was met me at Park Ave, the final spot for the evening. We were already inside. He parked my SUV and let me know where it was. I met him out front to get the tickets so my friends could come in. And he came in as well, and we hung out that night.
Okay. How long was he hanging out before he ended up leaving the bar?
I'm not sure. I'm sure it was a few hours.
Do you practice criminal law at all?
No.
Are you aware that Mr. Thompson is a convicted felon?
I am.
And are you aware that he's not allowed to have a gun as a result of that?
I am.
Okay. Did you ever tell Mr. Thompson, hey, I left my gun in the Beamer?
No.
Would he have any reason to believe that a gun was in that car?
No.
How often would he drive that BMW?
Not very often.
Okay. Can you recall why you didn't tell Mr. Thompson there was a gun in the car?
I would have. I didn't know that he would be taking my car that day. My BMW, I knew that he was bringing my truck.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure how the split of the drivers would end up going. I think by the end of the night, he took my car and I took the truck.
All right. And do you know where he was going to take your car to?
Home, I imagine. He doesn't regularly operate my vehicles because they're not his vehicles. They're not registered to him. He's not insured.
Was he living with you at the time, or is he on his own?
He was living with me.
Okay. Anything else you can think of? Okay. Haskins.
Mr. Merritt, I'm Luke Calhoun. You and I talked on the phone, I think once, and then we talked just briefly in the lobby. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate you being here. I don't have any questions for you at all or anything like that. Judge Hanford's with us?
Yes.
Can I get states, I think it's 3.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Merritt, I'm going to show you what's going to be the states 3 and 3A. Is that your holster?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're aware of the fact this was found in the vehicle, is that right?
I'm not aware of that. I actually continued to look around the house for it for a bit.
Gotcha. Okay. This is your holster?
Yes, sir.
And is this the holster you were wearing that night also?
Yes, sir.
Where did you purchase the gun?
In the gun range I was firing at, I believe it's called DFW gun range.
You bought it at the range?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know when approximately you bought it?
I can remember buying the event, but not by a date. I had a client who was assaulted in a parking lot, a young woman, and I wanted to take her to the range to get her gun training. I purchased a gun for her, and I purchased a gun for myself at the time we were getting our license to carry.
Any idea what year it might have been?
No, I can look it up because I know of the incident in the case, but I would be a guess about the year. There was a newspaper article written about it, and it was covered in the media for what it's worth.
About what?
I'm not a fan of guns, and so it was a big decision for me to purchase a firearm, and so it was covered in the paper.
I don't know how to pronounce the name, but I'm going to read it to you. Do you know Ldajonique? That's the first name.
It sounds like Ladajonique Lee, and that's the young woman I'm referring to who was assaulted in the parking lot.
So you bought that from her?
I didn't usually I bought it from her. I bought it for her.
For her?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Let me be clear. I purchased a firearm for me and a firearm for her as we got our gun training.
How do you keep back then, how would you keep the gun in your vehicle? In what place, in what state, that kind of thing?
Generally, I don't have it in my BMW. I have it in my SUV, which was a Tahoe. There's a safety compartment in the back with a lockbox that I will put my gun in after I went to the gun range. This was an unusual weekend.
If you were to put a weapon in your BMW vehicle, you certainly wouldn't stuff it in between the passenger seat and the door. Is that right?
Well, it seems like I in fact did do that. I imagine it was because I was in the passenger seat and I didn't have my normal safety box. If I'm entering a bar, I can imagine, and again, I have to imagine because I don't have a specific recollection, but I can imagine taking it out and putting it in the door.
Would you take it out of the holster and do that? And leave the holster in the floor?
Would I take it out of the holster in order to put it away in the BMW?
To kind of stuff it between the passenger seat and the passenger door.
In order to answer that, it would imply that I regularly do that. So I have not developed a habit of doing that. No.
Thanks for being here. That's all I got for you. Pass it.
Mr. Merritt, just to be clear, you went straight from your office to the gun range. Is that what happened?
That's correct.
And then you went straight from the gun range to the first bar that y'all were going to attend. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why not take the truck with you if you knew that you were going to be going to the gun range that day?
I don't think I knew I go to the gun range quite often, so if I have some downtime between work or activities, I may go to the gun range.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, to answer the question why I was not in my tie, if the question is why I was not in my tie holders, it's a separate answer for that. Someone else brought my kids to school that day.
So that's why you were in the BMW?
That's correct.
How did you transport the gun in the BMW before you went to the gun range?
I had it on my person.
Okay. And you said you were applying for an LTC. Do you have an LTC?
I applied for the LTC. I completed the courses. The laws have changed since in the state of Texas. I never finished my fingerprinting.
Was this after constitutional carry then, the November 19 date?
The date of the incident?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it was not after constitutional carry.
Right. I'll pass it on, Judge.
No further questions, Judge.
Witness excused?
Witness excused.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You take the court in the courtroom at this time if you choose. Our next witness.
Rest.
Stay close.
Close the evidence.
Argument.
Reserve, Judge.
Judge, I think it's clear that Mr. Thompson had no idea the gun was in the car. I believe a rational and reasonable explanation of the evidence is what Mr. Merritt did, is knowing he's going to go to a bar, didn't have time to put the gun away, took the gun out of the holster, put the holster in the passenger floorboard, and then stuffed the gun to where no one would be able to see it. That way he wouldn't necessarily be the victim of theft, because obviously if he leaves the gun in the holster, someone's likely to break into the car and grab the gun. I think it's telling that no officer can say that Mr. Thompson ever actually held the firearm. They could only guess as to what was happening. And the whole notion that he's supposed to know every nook and cranny of that car is unreasonable. Possession requires care, custody, control. Certainly drove the car, no denying that, but it's not his car. And you could see very clearly that the gun was hidden from plain sight and that Mr. Thompson never exercised care, custody, control over the firearm. And so I think what this is just a bunch of Monday morning quarterbacking from the officers who have no idea and had no idea that there was a gun in the car until they saw the holster. So for that reason, Judge, based on Mr. Merritt's testimony and the testimony of the officers, I think there's certainly reasonable doubt as to whether Mr. Thompson ever possessed a firearm in this case, especially given we don't have any fingerprints to tie him directly to the gun, and so therefore I'd ask you to find him not guilty.
Judge, just briefly, as you know, the crime is unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. It's not unlawful ownership of a firearm by a felon. I think the evidence shows that the defendant was in possession of the firearm. The documents show that he's a convicted felon as well as the testimony. We'd ask that you find him guilty of the offense.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Thompson, you did a lot of incredibly stupid things that night. I'm kind of surprised you weren't charged with some of the other things that were done. But I'm going to find you not guilty of possession of the firearm. You need to be more careful about what you're doing with your criminal history. Frankly, it looks like you could add a DWI and an evading. You put a lot of people in danger that night. But I cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt you knew the vehicle was in, or the gun was in the vehicle. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.